So, Zach, it's unfortunate that we have to start the show this week once again with the announcement of a fatality around motorsport, around Formula One, this time Formula 2, with the passing of the F2 driver, former GP3 champion, Antoine Hubert, over the weekend after a crash at Spa. There was another driver involved in the incident who was in intensive care for, I think, a day or two and is still on the mend. But unfortunately, the story has been Antoine Hubert passing away.
Yeah, devastating news, especially because of his closeness to so many of the other young drivers on the Formula One grid and just around motorsport. It's just that constant reminder this is an incredibly dangerous sport, and regardless of how much the sport's doing, motorsport is doing around safety, and it shouldn't be disregarded that they've made absolute leaps and bounds. That there are people still driving around at hundreds of kilometers an hour, and that it's incredibly dangerous. And it takes real bravery to be involved in this sport. And of course, we're all saddened. It was surprising news to a lot of us, to happen at that kind of time of day. And I think we've become a little bit, maybe not forgotten that these are some of the risks around the sport, but that it doesn't happen nearly with the frequency as much as it used to. So, incredibly tragic news.
And it's just so unexpected, come completely out of the blue. No one was going to Spa thinking, wow, this is one of those tracks where we're really putting our life on the line more than other places. So I think it hit home a little bit extra there. And the connection that this young driver has had to other drivers. He's obviously a French driver, part of the Renault young driver squad, and very well known to some of the drivers that are making their name in Formula One now, like Charles Leclerc. So if you have to find a silver lining, the success of Charles Leclerc taking his maiden win here at this race is the only bright spark in what's been a pretty dark weekend. But whoever won was going to dedicate their win to him. But the fact that it comes from Charles is it's a little bit extra special.
Yeah, it really is. For me, that kind of compounded on the sadness that there's probably no doubt that Charles would have dedicated that win to someone like Jules Bianchi as his maiden win, and now he's got unfortunately, terribly, somebody else to have to dedicate it to. So, this sport has kind of been touched recently by young drivers finding tragic ends in and around the sport. So hopefully we can kind of all move on positively from this, and that we won't have to be doing these kind of intros to the show ever again.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say exactly the same thing. Keep pushing for more safety. Hopefully we can start more shows and the rest of the shows that we ever do with this music. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Super License F1 podcast. My name is Rodney.
And my name is Zach.
It is good to be talking to you, Zach. It has been a bit of a downer week for obvious reasons, but we have rebounded from the summer break after a really good run up to the summer break with a run of really good F1 races. We have had a nice, refreshing F1 summer, although we were here working. Thanks again to Spanners Ready for being on our summer break show. That was a lot of fun. But it's back into it seriously now. We've got to roll up our sleeves, and we've got actual notes and things to think about now.
Yeah, we ran straight into this race weekend feeling like it hadn't really gone away for a break. Sometimes that break can feel really long, but it's nice to be back. And man, oh man, has there been some things happening. Usually Monza feels like, Ferrari make their big driver move if it's going to happen, and then everything else kind of falls into place after that. But it feels like all the other teams were like, you know what, let's just lock everybody down now in the summer break.
Yeah,
so why don't you just whip through the driver changes?
We jettisoned news a little while ago to streamline the intros, but there's just been so much driver news that we have to kind of cover it up quickly. Over the summer break show, we covered the Gasly Albon swap. No need to go too deep into that. The other news from Mercedes is that the will they, won't they, Bottas Ocon love affair is over. They've extended their contract with Valtteri Bottas. He'll be joining Ferrari. He'll be joining Lewis Hamilton. He'll be joining Ferrari. You heard it here first. He'll be joining Lewis Hamilton next year, and then Ferrari the year after, maybe, question mark. Who knows? You don't know.
Never.
Esteban Ocon is then released, and he'll be going to join Daniel Ricciardo at Renault, which means that Nico Hülkenberg has been released from Renault. They've thanked him for his years and years of service, but Haas are looking at Nico Hülkenberg, or weighing up whether they keep Romain Grosjean. They have committed to keeping Kevin Magnussen. Speaking of keeping drivers, you've got Racing Point, who have signed Perez for 3 years. 3 years, Zach. Who signs anyone for 3 years?
especially Chico Perez. Like it's that good sponsorship money he brings in as well as being a good racer, you know. And he's good media. He's good for the American and Mexican fans. I think it's good all round for Racing Point. And I don't mind Chico Perez. I like him in the sport. So it's nice to see a long-term contract being signed by someone. I'm being offered by someone.
Yeah, it is. I suppose that's true. And as long as Papa Stroll owns that team, you know what the lineup for that team is going to be for the next 3 years. Is if that news wasn't enough, there were rumours going crazy at Spa that Marcus Sony Ericsson had been flown in to Belgium. He was meant to be driving an Indy car, and they were like, no, come and drive in Formula One instead. But then he got to Spa, and Kimi Räikkönen, who he was meant to sub in for, who had injured his leg, Kimi Räikkönen was like, actually, I feel a bit better. Like I took a Panadol, and now I'm good. I reckon I'll just drive. So poor old Marcus Ericsson spent his weekend in the scenic, what would you say, not outskirts, in the scenic outing in Belgium, but no drive for
the hills.
The hills, sure.
The hills of Belgium, yeah, of Spa-Francorchamps. Do you reckon he was there enough to make a cameo in the Drive to Survive Netflix series, or do you think he won't be featuring at all?
I wonder what you could actually do though to kind of catch the eye of the producers. Just like if he sees a camera, he'll just sort of walk along behind them, just casually sort of running his fingers through his hair, just trying to get attention. Maybe if he could see some curtains, he would try and force them open in a weird way.
If he turned up with a shaved head, that would have done it.
Perfect. Maybe some new tattoos, some big, like pink glasses that are twice as wide as his head, those novelty glasses, maybe those. Look, these are all tips, Marcus. You can have these for free. He was at Belgium. F1 was at Belgium, and it's time for me to introduce you all to the concept of the Belgian Grand Prix. If you've never been, it's going to be the best F1 intro that you can get. Zach, we're going to start our Belgium intro this week with a little known fact. Did you know that the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps is an exact replica of the version from the F1 video games? It's amazing. The attention to detail that they've gone to, recreating all 16 turns, is precisely the same as it is in the virtual version. It's just a shame that they actually copied and pasted the guy in the grandstand with the orange shirt so much, but that's okay. We'll let that go. Amazingly, at 15 kilometers long, the old Spa-Francorchamps circuit is the same length as the entire Eau Rouge stream that lends its name to one of the most famous corners in all of motorsport, or any sport really. Name another sport with a famous corner. You can't. Okay, you can name one, but name 10 more. It's just not possible. And yes, thanks to the trolls at WTF1, we now all know that Eau Rouge is just a little bit that you see when you look on up at the bottom, and when you look on down from Radillon. So let's ignore how obscure that song reference is and use this last bit to reference waffles instead, and let's beat a path to Belgium, baby.
Oof, there were a lot of references in there. There was a lot of love. I liked the more free-form attitude. You're starting to find your own voice. It's kind of still Crofty, but it's Crofty inspired, not Crofty copied.
Yes, no. Look, I emulate, I don't imitate, but that's been pent up in me all summer, so I'm glad to get that out and flex that muscle. Zach, we have a race to recap. Do you reckon we just jump into the race recap?
Let's do it. Jump.
Let's not jump. Let's talk instead.
Let us race, man. I gave him space.
Suck my balls, man.
Let's hurry up and get out of here. We got a race to do.
Jump right in. I guess you could do that metaphorically. I didn't mean to be too literal. Zach, it's the return of Formula One. It's the return of our race recap, which means it's the return of our 30-second race recap special thing. You only get that on this podcast, although you get it on some other cricket podcasts. But look, let's ignore that for a second. And Zach, in the rotation, it is your turn to recap the race. Are you ready? Have you got your notes prepared? And are you ready to recap the race in just 30 seconds?
Yeah, let me go into my mind palace. All right. And I'm ready. In a race where we all thought that Ferrari could maybe get a win after a great qualifying, but maybe it would take some disruption for Max Verstappen, he took all of his normal race disruption and piled it all into the first 5 seconds of the race, finding a way to just drive into a gap that was always going to disappear if it was Kimi Räikkönen or otherwise. What that meant was that we ended up with, really a little bit of a fight to the end, but not so much so. And Vettel actually playing a rear gunner role for another Ferrari driver. You never thought you'd see it, but you did this week.
Very good. And if that horn was a little bit longer, you wouldn't have had to have just clipped those last few words. But man, that is a good summary of the race. I like it very much. There's a few things to unpack, I guess, from the first corner, because obviously the first corner at Spa, that's claimed a few scalps, I'll tell you. And Yeah, the whole Max Verstappen being knocked out was a bit of a blow if you were one of the orange shirts in the crowd, aforementioned orange shirts. I guess some of them take their shirt off, which is gross. Don't do that in public. But,
orange caps.
Orange caps as well, orange flags, orange flares, which I could take or leave the flares. I don't mean the pants, I mean the actual smoky things. But a big shame.
I feel the opposite way. I feel that the pants should go away and that we should keep the smoky things.
Okay. Well, if there's enough smoky things, no one needs to wear pants, and I'm for that for sure. I think it's just a shame because the crowds at Formula One general, but especially at Spa, have been growing, and a lot of the crowd at Spa are there to see Max Verstappen race. And I think it's so disappointing. I'm disappointed for them. I know that, some of Max Verstappen's fans are among the loosest units in Formula One fandom, but it's just such a heartbreak for them to not even get to see really anything, especially if you only bought tickets for Sunday, for example. You just missed out. And I mean, even if you'd seen him race for 3/4 of the race and then retire, that's better than getting knocked out on the first lap, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, all you're left with then is a great Formula One race. And it's not quite the same as watching your own homeboy race around and do the exact same thing. I mean, we've had this with Daniel Ricciardo at Australian Grand Prix and otherwise. But yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, partly because I wasn't really joking about the fact that he could have disrupted this entire race. When you look at a straight fight between Mercedes and Ferrari, Max Verstappen has been the one recently who's like, I'm going to get in the way here and pit and disrupt other people's races, or take the win myself. Who cares? So it would have maybe given us more, but I thought we got our fill right. Pardon that siren. I have no idea what that was. Someone's car alarm. We're on an industrial estate here. That stuff happens. I'm surprised there isn't more background noise. However, yeah, I think that the incident itself, he put himself in a spot that was just going to disappear. I don't think he was too angered by it. He was kind of like, "Oh, what happened there?" And I don't think Kimi was annoyed about it either, except that it damaged Kimi's car a bit. But it did have ramifications down the grid because suddenly everybody was skipping all over the place. Daniel Ricciardo got hit from behind, Kimi Raikkonen almost flipped over. So it wasn't great. And sort of it caused not just turmoil at the front, but down the grid. And it left, someone like Daniel Ricciardo to basically try and run the whole race on one set of tyres after pitting on lap one, and which I don't know about that strategy.
Yeah, bit dodgy.
But maybe they were hoping for another safety car or something else to happen that they could just kind of hold position. But yeah, it was always going to finish up with him dropping down the leaderboard towards the end of the race. So maybe Renault learned a lot about the car there. I was going to say it was going to be a nice weekend for Renault engines, except for the fact that Lando Norris, who was in a stonking 5th position after all of that turmoil, he just cut straight through and was like, "Oh my God, there's nobody else around." Yeah. And he ran, where traditionally the second Red Bull driver has been, which is just like kind of between Formula 1.5 and the real Formula One, that kind of 5th, 6th position, and didn't really see anybody. And then I didn't even see his car stop. It just gave up on him on the second last lap or the last lap, right? And that was it. But I think he'll take away a lot of positives, and I think that Renault and McLaren will both take away a lot of positive from this race and say, you know what, things are on the right trajectory. And at McLaren, they'd say that they've got a driver lineup that could last them, speaking of 3-year contracts for Perez, I'd sign Sainz and Lando Norris for as long a contracts as I can at this point if I was at McLaren.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think Red Bull probably wish that they'd signed Sainz for a little bit longer, but it doesn't matter. We're sort of jumping around the notes a little bit, which is fine, and the listeners don't know that, so why bring it up? But yeah, Lando Norris would have been very worthy for his P5 drive. Just heartbreaking to see him broken down on the last lap. No one likes to see that. And the disruption at the front meant that a couple of drivers that would have finished in that little, the last 4 or 5 points paying positions, a lot of them were knocked out. Pocket. So Sainz knocked out of the race, Verstappen out of the race, Raikkonen and even Ricciardo just knocked so far down that they were out of contention. And that meant that the drivers that were recovering, like the amazing drive from Albon in his Red Bull debut, who started at the back of the grid basically because of engine penalties and stuff, started P17, finishes P5, sure, benefits a little bit from a couple of drivers that would have otherwise maybe finished ahead of him, but that's just what a strong debut at the senior team, and really a real answers the question mark that had been raised after his promotion, which was now nearly 4 weeks ago, because it was close to the start of the summer break, and people have had 4 weeks to sit around thinking like, oh, is this the right decision? And I'm sure there are some very relieved old heads at their Red Bull factory.
Yeah, especially because he had to make overtakes. He had to overtake both Toro Rossos.
Wasn't easy, no.
And he had to get by everybody. It's a new car, so, he doesn't it's not like he's stepping into just a faster version of the Toro Rosso. It kind of is, but not exactly. New car, new team, new track. All of these kinds of things all happen for him. And to see Max Verstappen go out early and then kind of be like, all right, now it's all on you, man. Make it work.
It's all on you.
I think he would be very pleased with his own performance, and you could see it on the faces of the Red Bull garage that they were just like, oh, maybe we did it right this time. Maybe we got it. Because every interview I see with Albon, I'm like, oh, you're really friendly and just like really, really, really happy to be there. Like he's not arrogant. He's still self-assured as any Formula One driver is, but he's just like, oh my God, this is all kind of coming together. He probably thought he was 2 years off a proper Formula One team debut, and here he is right now, ready to go. And it's going to take a lot to kind of make him let go of this opportunity. I think we'll see him in the Red Bull definitely for the rest of the season, and he'll be snapped up for 2020, no trouble. So I'm really, really happy for him. I really like the guy.
I said it last time, and it still holds true as a possibility that he will win a race before Sebastian Vettel. Of course, Ferrari won their first race of the year at this circuit, and thankfully for me and for my claim, it was Charles Leclerc in the winning seat rather than Sebastian Vettel. Really, when you think about it, Charles Leclerc took pole here, his third pole for the year, and really was in contention for 2 other race victories, but neither of those came to pass. But he's had an up and down year, but when he's been up, he has been on it. And it hasn't just been like the start of the season either. He was on it definitely for the first few races, but when he has been in contention for wins, they've been spaced out throughout the season. And we're, rebounding now from the summer break. If there was ever a time where he might have been reflecting on things and felt a bit down, not the least of which, the day after one of his old mates passes away. Incredible drive from Charles Leclerc, really making Sebastian Vettel look very average. Obviously, Spa was always going to suit Ferrari over Mercedes because of their engine advantage. Unfortunately, it seems to me like the way that Ferrari manages their tyres just isn't as good as Mercedes is. So, of course, they're a little bit faster on the straights, but hey, they lose that advantage not on one lap, but over, a stint, 20, 30 laps, say. So, over the course of a race distance, the Mercedes were really nipping at their heels. So a good win from Charles Leclerc under pressure, I would say, with, none less than Lewis Hamilton on his tail for finishing 1 second behind him for a victory while dealing with back markers on the last lap. I can't even think of the stress, but he just got out of the car and he just did not even look like he had broken a sweat. Just a picture of calm and relaxation.
Yeah, no mistakes, really. You could point to, the little lockups here and there, which is what happens when you have the world's best driver chasing you, over 44 of the longest laps in Formula One. That's always going to be a little bit tricky. I suppose it was lucky that he took pole. Not lucky that he took pole, but it was good for Ferrari that they had pole because the Mercedes aren't great at following, just kind of generally. You could see with Lewis, he would push, get within around a second, even when he was chasing Vettel around, just kind of get within that second and then kind of have to only stay there for 1 or 2 laps and then maybe back off because of various issues that Mercedes have when they follow. But you could really see where everybody else was using the DRS really effectively to overtake in the midfield that Mercedes couldn't really make up any time. He was chasing and whenever he was chasing a Ferrari, he would get, within half a second through the windy bits at Spa. And then as soon as he got on that straight, the Ferrari would almost drive further off into the distance. To pick up off that last corner, the Ferrari just accelerates so quickly and the DRS and the slipstream was doing nothing for Mercedes really. So it's really good signs for Monza because that track is the closest we have to the Indy 500, just driving in a big circle with like the 2 chicanes. So really, the Ferrari should just, if they can put together a race weekend like they did this weekend, where things were, they nailed it in practice, they got their setups right, well, except obviously Sebastian Vettel binning it in practice 3 before qualifying, but really, if they can get a driver through a clean race weekend in Monza, on the outskirts of Milan, they should be, 2 wins from 2 races in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, unlike Spa, which is, tons and tons of corners, it's a great track, but there's tons of corners, which gives the Mercedes the little bit of advantage they get. Monza is like 3 corners. So, if Mercedes have an advantage through the corners when Ferrari have an advantage on the straights, boy, if they can't win there is something wrong. So again, I'm backing, my man, Charles Leclerc, to win and keep the Albon dream alive. And, I guess there's a few other notes that we could talk about from the race. I've got a note here about Romain Grosjean being super unhappy about it being overtaken by quote unquote everybody. The team got on the radio and said, get your elbows out, just hold your position. And he was like, dude, I'm not going to fight for position. We've been doing this all day. I've been sitting here for 30 laps and we're getting nowhere. And all that's happening is I'm getting overtaken. I look stupid. I feel stupid and I am stupid. It really, reading between the lines, I really felt that was the radio call from a guy who either has been told your chances of staying here are super slim, or just is just got the hump that it's even an issue. He's just got the hump that they're even thinking about it. So, he's going to worry himself out of a spot there, I reckon.
Yeah. I wonder if is there any chance that we could see the proposed or the agreed upon swaps between Hülkenberg going possibly to Haas and Ocon, because he's an auxiliary driver at this point. He's not having to swap from another team. He'd be coming straight into the Renault team. Is there a chance that could happen before the end of the season if Grosjean is like, why would Haas hold on to Grosjean if they don't want him there? He doesn't want to be there. Nothing good is happening. There's just every chance he'll crash into Magnussen. So why not swap it earlier?
I mean, I guess that sounds pretty good from Haas's point of view. Does it sound good from Renault's point of view? I mean, maybe, because they'll get their driver in and used to the car before next year.
Nice French driver in that nice French team.
They don't really have a championship standing that they have to protect. Like, it's not like they're protecting fourth or anything, because they're not that good this year. Boy, man, when you said that, I thought that's stupid, but I can't think of a single reason why it is. It's starting to look pretty good, mate.
We need a different Formula One professional on here to tell us why that definitely won't happen.
Yes, please.
So tweet at us if you're that F1 professional and tell us that's impossible, Zach, you stupid. So, yeah.
Well,
It's still you're still right about Haas. They have problems, and they've had problems all season. They just don't quite seem to be making progress. Maybe Monza will be a great race for them because they're basically a Ferrari in black rich energy branded clothing. So there's every possibility that they'll have a great race too, and maybe they'll be best of the rest. But I wouldn't discount those McLarens, man. They're putting in good performances. Not to mention the Honda engine seems pretty good in the Red Bulls as well. So, and Toro Rosso is technically their home race in Italy as well. So, I know we're talking about Spa, but it just seems like an appetizer for what could be a really interesting Monza race as well.
Very true. No disagreement here. Do you have any other points to raise from the race?
Not particularly. Maybe, let's talk maybe just one point about the Sebastian Vettel, the rear gunning.
That one
good.
Just jumped out at me as well. What did you think? Because my initial thought was they should be trying to get Sebastian Vettel on the podium here, and then I don't know. I think I've changed my tune since post race, and I think he did the right thing, and they sacrificed him. But boy, Ferrari needed the win more than they needed Vettel on the podium.
Yeah, I think that's the truth of the matter, but I don't think Vettel was having a particularly good race anyway.
No, that's true.
Leclerc was showing how much faster he was. How much easier it was to be out in front as well. And Vettel just fried his tyres when nobody was really expecting him to. So that was a bit odd. And I think it was kind of coincidental that he got the opportunity to back Hamilton up, that's kind of just how that race kind of panned out. I don't think they were particularly planning that. They took advantage of a bad situation for Vettel and said, let's turn this into a positive, which is not something you'd expect from Ferrari to actually be able to strategize. At this point in Ferrari's history, that seems beyond them. But I'm glad that they made the right call there. It was, I think Mercedes I commented, I was watching the race with a friend, and I commented at the time when Hamilton pitted that it seemed like Mercedes were playing chess and Vettel and Ferrari were playing checkers, because Hamilton was not racing Vettel at that point. They decided, it's like, no, we're racing Leclerc and we're going to try and win this race. And I don't think Ferrari had maybe seen that yet. So Vettel was still thinking he was battling it out with Hamilton for second, when Hamilton was like, no, that's all stupid. I'm going for the win, which kind of puts Vettel in that position. They forced Vettel into a rear gunner position, which still shows that even when Ferrari is kind of dominating a race, that they're still maybe not quite as good as Mercedes is on a race weekend.
Yeah, very true. Well, yeah, I wasn't sure whether we were going to agree or disagree there, but I think we totally agree, which is a bit nice. And the last point that I had was, just how nice it was to hear the Monegasque anthem, because I tweeted out, I've never heard the Monegasque national anthem before. Someone pointed out they do play it at the start of every Monaco Grand Prix, and then I realized, but I actually don't listen to them. I just tune them out. We go to Hungary every year and they play the national anthem. I could not hum you 2 bars of the Hungarian national anthem. So, no one pays attention to that. It's purely for the spectators, I reckon.
Oh yeah, definitely. I had a moment where I was like, do I even know what the Monaco flag looks like? The the Monaco flag looks like?
Yeah.
I was like, I did.
The same as the Singapore flag, I think. Like if you type in the emoji, it's the same. They use the same flag for both countries.
Ah.
The actual emoji is exactly the same. Not that we base flags on emojis. I'm just saying, it's the other way around. But
the Wikipedia of references.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, I think that's the race done. Zach, it's time to move on to the virtual race, which is our fantasy focus segment. And I have the fantastic, thrilling, exciting news to tell you that neither of us did anything this week. I am still in 45th place. You are still in 41st place in our league. I might have forgotten to put in my bonus picks this round, and I'm blaming that on my inertia.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, they can't all be, insanely, big changes every week. Sometimes a Ferrari win's going to do that to the fantasy team. So, to
be fair,
just got to be ready for the next race.
I was checking Twitter, and the F1, Fantasy GP account tweeted, "Hey, everyone, our system is down, but we're working on it. It'll be up soon." And I went, "Oh yeah, I forgot to put my picks in. This is before qualifying." So then I tried to get in, and it was sort of up and down, and I was like, "Oh man, I'll come back later and do this." And then of course, then I forgot again. So I mean, yeah, questionable. Is that really my fault? I'm saying no, but I'm saying so you did really good this race is the top 3 places went to Ruckus Racing by Josh, Daniel Avocado, Team Daniel Avocado was by Steph, and Scuteria Pants by Airman 2000. I don't know what that name means, but congratulations to you guys. I wanted to give a shout out to Randy with the team Jordan Buzz, who jumped 8 places in the league overall this weekend, and it just shows that you only need one good weekend and you can turn things around. Don't listen to our example and our inertia, and our teams are going nowhere. They're pedaling backwards. Don't listen to us. Look at Randy. Look at what he did. All you need is one good race, and your entire standing in the league can turn around.
Yeah, your entire outlook can change as well. So if you change your outlook first,
you are not wrong.
then next time you could be on top. Maybe your name will get mentioned on the show.
Just you wait until I'm in that top 3 of performers for the race. I will not let you live it down. Zach, what do you reckon? I ask you a couple of questions.
They're going to be really hard ones?
No.
We will accept a couple of questions. Should one only win one? Would one want to have won that one in round 1?
Can you repeat the question?
I say no, by which I mean maybe. I was looking around for...
Now who's asking the questions?
I was looking around for some trivia, some stats. Obviously, I realized that Sebastian Vettel has now gone a full calendar year without winning. He's gone a full calendar year now without winning. And I was like, wonder who at Ferrari has... had some similar stats that I could compare him to. So I started looking at Vettel's stats at Ferrari, looking at other Ferrari drivers that are comparable, and I came across an amazing comparison. So this week's quiz is Vettel versus Alonso, the Ferrari years. So forget the years they spent at other teams, focus just on Vettel at Ferrari versus Alonso at Ferrari. So Zach, first question. Out of those 2 drivers, which currently has the most races with Scuderia?
Oh, the most races. I think Alonso has the most races.
Ding ding. Alonso 95, Vettel 93. So
it's very close.
On his heels. Oh yeah, it's very close. That's what makes this comparison so good, because it's pretty level, Out of those races, who has more Ferrari wins?
I feel like Vettel hasn't won in a Ferrari. I know that's not true, but it really feels like it.
Hasn't won.
I think Alonso's had more wins.
It is very close, though Vettel has got 13 wins and Alonso has 11. So 2 fewer races and 2 more wins for Vettel. So pretty good.
I really thought that Ferrari was in a better position back then when Alonso was there with a real number 2 driver. Anyway, that's a good comparison.
The next question, just to round out some more stats. Who has more Ferrari pole positions, podiums, fastest laps, and overall points? This is one driver. Which one of the two has more pole positions, podiums, fastest laps, and overall points during their years at Ferrari?
Again, I'm going to back in Alonso here.
Again, you are unwise. It was Sebastian Vettel. He has lots of all of those. I didn't bother with the numbers because who cares?
Wow.
The only standard measure where Alonso is ahead is laps completed, which, that doesn't really count for anything.
It's because he didn't bin it as much as Vettel does.
Yeah, not quite. All right, next question. During their Ferrari years, which driver had the longest streak without winning in a Ferrari?
I really feel like all the data suggests that it can't be Vettel, so I'm going to say for the third time in a row, third time lucky, I'm going to say Alonso has had the longest streak without winning.
Really good. That's actually correct.
Yes.
Sebastian Vettel, he went a full year, so he's done the whole calendar not winning. He's lost at all of the tracks, 21 tracks. Alonso, though, his longest stint without winning was 33 races at Ferrari, which is incredible. But in 2013, he won the Spanish Grand Prix and didn't win a single race for the rest of that year or the whole next year. And that was his last year and a half at Ferrari. Completely winless. Incredible.
Yeah. I mean, a good one to win, though, your home race.
Well, if you're going to win one, sure, absolutely. I was going to say, I've got another question about sort of home race, so then maybe we'll skip forward to that one. Who has the better record at Monza during their Ferrari years?
At Monza.
Yeah.
The better record. The better record at Monza. I do remember the Monza I was at. I remember watching Alonso racing behind Daniel Ricciardo the entire race, and seemingly getting closer and closer just before the Parabolica through Ascari.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah. I think that Vettel has the better time at Monza than Alonso has.
So I'm calling it for Alonso for a few reasons. Okay. I mean, he did have one. He did have 1 year. Better looking, yeah. He's got those chiseled cheekbones. Oof. He did have 1 year where he retired, but I kind of don't think that's his fault. He also got a podium every year that he raced at Monza, which Vettel hasn't, and he's the only one to win one. So I'm giving it to Alonso as the head-to-head master at Ferrari's home race in Monza, while driving at Ferrari. The next question, Zach, which driver has the most consecutive podiums for Ferrari in a stretch?
The most consecutive podiums. I reckon maybe before that Spanish run, because Alonso was he just kind of was always there or thereabouts, even through the bad times. I reckon it's Alonso.
You're sort of correct in that it's the dead heat on six in a row. So Vettel had 6 at the start of the 2017 season. Alonso had 6, but 5 of them were at the end of 2012, and then he got 1 in Melbourne 2013. So, I mean, give it to you. That's one of those feel-good questions where you can't get it wrong. Before I drop this final question, which is a bit more hard, in the year before joining Ferrari, which driver finished lower in the Drivers' Championship?
The year before joining Ferrari.
Yeah, so in Alonso's year before he joined Ferrari and in Vettel's year before he joined Ferrari. Okay, they're different years, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, Alonso was at, where was he? Was he at... Did he
Renault?
Go to, yeah, he was at Renault, right? And then went to Ferrari. When did he go to McLaren?
That was after Ferrari.
When was that? Yeah.
Oh, and it was before Renault.
And long before, yeah.
Yes,
back in the Hamilton
he's been
time.
there twice, of course.
Yes, yeah, of course. Okay, so he was at Renault...
And Vettel, obviously, from Red Bull.
Yeah, and Vettel was at Red Bull, and Daniel Ricciardo, beat him every single day.
Wiped the floor with him.
And it's like Vettel wasn't even turning up to races.
It was so bad, Vettel was like, hey, my contract says if I do real bad, I get to leave, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
So with that in mind...
With that in mind, feels like a trick question because it's recency bias. With that in mind, I'm going to say that Alonso had a better season in his year before joining Ferrari than Vettel had his previous season before joining Ferrari.
Unfortunately, you are wrong. Alonso finished 9th in the championship with Renault the year before he joined Ferrari. They just plucked him out of 9th. It was incredible. And Vettel had only finished 5th. And that was bad enough for him to be like, yeah, see you, 4-time world champions. I'm Gonski. So, yeah, Alonso went from 9th and elevated, I think, up to 2nd in the championship in his first year at Ferrari. Vettel went from 5th with Red Bull and went to 3rd in the championship in his first year with Ferrari. So a very small progression up the field for Vettel in his first year and a very sizable progression up the field for Alonso in his first year.
These Vettel years at Ferrari are kind of the lost years. Like, it's just hard to even really think about. I suppose it's kind of like that. It's the years when Vettel was at Red Bull when they were dominating. It's hard to even really think about any of the other drivers. You're kind of like, who was where?
Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully some of this puts it in the context because they've had almost the same number of races, almost the same number of wins, and definitely the same number of championships. So, I mean, yeah, maybe we stop feeling so bad for Fernando Alonso and start feeling really bad for Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, because now he's got somebody next to him who could actually beat him, which Alonso never had.
True. Well, Zach, that's a super quiz. I think you did incredibly well. And I said at the start, where the question's easy, sort of, no, maybe, yes. I mean, there's only 2 answers. You're
50-50.
You're not going to get the answer wrong exactly. You're either going to know it or you've got a 50-50 chance. So look, I just thought that was a really interesting one anyway. It's time to get on to final thoughts before we wrap up the show, Zach. So do you have any final thoughts you want to leave us on?
Yeah, I think it's tough on the F1 community to give us 2 really good races in a row, to give us Spa and Monza straight coming back. Like, I feel like we're using all the F1 up. But maybe that's because they know next year we're going to have 22 races on the provisional calendar, which came out, 4 days ago. I found out I'd missed that news, and I got an email from Formula One store being like, hey, man, you can buy some tickets to the Formula One next year or what? And I was like, hey, chill. It's barely September. I haven't even thought about travel for next year yet. Come on, man. I think having back-to-back races like this, I know they're not too far away from each other, Belgium and Italy, but I partly feel like we could spread that a little nicer, but then maybe that's harder on the teams as well. But did you have any feelings on the 22 race season next year with Vietnam and the Dutch GP both being added?
Just that I'm amazed that we don't have, a triple header like we used to have, and somehow amazed that they still start the season in March and finish it by November and still squeeze 22 races and a summer break in there. That's incredible. And there is one provisional race, which is Italy, but something in my waters just tells me that we might show up at Monza in a couple of days and there might be a nice announcement of a 1-year extension. So I fully expect that will be a 22 race season. If you're planning to go to a race, you can have 22 choices of races to go to. You might want to pick the one closest to you. You might want to go to one you've never been to before. Go to Azerbaijan. Why the hell not? It's always one of those crazy races. And you may as well, because you get to see a castle, and that's not a bad thing. Yeah, fantastic. I was also either going to raise the calendar or I was going to raise this other thing, which it's been on the radar for both of us for whatever reason, but Lewis Hamilton has announced he's launching the world's first burger chain that is... It's got the burgers that are based on plant material, so no meat. I don't know if you've had... What's that burger called? Is it called like the Impossible Burger or the Beyond Burger or something? Have you had one of those?
They're 2 different companies. There's the Impossible Meat Co. and the Beyond Burger Company.
Yeah,
so
they're both having a moment,
they both have burgers.
Yeah. Have you had one?
No, but this was... I was thinking that this might be my first one, because they are available here, but I don't... I hate to say it, Rob, but I think I'm a little bit past the burger craze. It's been going on now for like 7 years, and I think... might have had enough of it.
You and I went to Parlour too many times, I guess. We just overdosed.
Hucksterburger, Parlour, just any of them.
Hucksterburger, yeah. Well, I went to Hucksterburger and had one of the... I think it was a Beyond Burger. And I have to say, I thought it was really good. Definitely reported back that the eating experience was very enjoyable. The flavour was great. The texture was great. Just noticed afterwards, about 2 hours afterwards, the old stomach was just sort of expanding a little bit. The old The old arse cheeks were flapping a little bit of noise and smell escaping, and I realized that's right. I ate a veggie burger today so there's about 5 or 10 minutes of very uncomfortable. I had to get away from my co-workers, so it was just getting a bit embarrassing. But other than that, the burger was a big success. So yeah, tick of approval from me. I'm not entirely sure either that this is, the press release for the burger chain said it's the world's first, global burger chain based on plant material. I'm not sure that's entirely true, but I couldn't find any specific example that said it isn't. I know that here we have like Lord of the Fries. I know they have that in New Zealand, and they probably have it at other places. I don't know if they have it over there, but it's frustrating me that I can't think of another one, but I'm sure there is another one.
Yeah, no, I immediately think of Lord of the Fries because I remember being told I had been buying their snack boxes for so long, and then someone told me it's like, that's all vegetarian and vegan. I was like, you go, what? Yeah. Big plug. If they want to sponsor the show, that is a sponsor I'd be totally into. Lord of the Fries,
100
color scheme match. Everything like that.
I'm going to email them this segment after this. Take a clip of it, email it to them and say, get on it, you boys. So yeah, look, I mean, I just wanted to say this. Like, if I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm going through a big craze at the moment where I'm trying to better my life. And I think cutting out meat, substituting it with some weird, insect protein or plants or whatever, it's got to be better. It's got to be better than eating meat.
Well, I'm going to be in London for a few more years at least. So there's every chance I'll go to Neat Burger, which is, I'm pretty sure what the chain is called.
Yes.
I think it's in Mayfair, which I'm not in Mayfair that often, to tell you the truth. I do not pass go, and I very rarely collect £200. So I'm hopefully going to go. And as soon as I go, I'll report back, and I'll let everybody know that it's good or not.
And if by then we've got a Lord of the Fries sponsorship, make no mistake, your opinion can be bought and you will trash it.
I will trash Neat Burger on socials.
Yeah, we are not above that. Well, thanks everyone for listening. That has been the week in F1, I guess, through our bizarre viewpoint, and it's going to be F1 back on track at Monza very, very soon, so you won't have to wait very long until you can hear us doing this crazy nonsense all over again. Zach, it's been a pleasure. Now, you're going to be traveling, so even though the race is in a few days, the next episode is going to be a week later. Mark your calendars accordingly. The next episode of Super License will not be next week, it will be the week after, correct?
Yes, I'm doing that incredibly annoying thing. Guess where I'm traveling to?
Oh, get fucked. You're not going to Italy.
I'm going to Italy for a week.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah, I know. The funny thing is, the last time I went to Italy for this similar trip of going to the Cinque Terre and Tuscany, I actually did go to Monza, but this time, not so much.
Wow.
So yes, unfortunately, everybody, my travel plans have yet again gotten in the way of a podcast happening hot on the heels of the race. But instead, I'm sure there will be news maybe in the driver market and all that kind of stuff that we'll have time to digest, and we'll fully get a full understanding of all the goings on in Formula One before we then record the show and get it out the following week. It just means it's a shorter distance between that episode and the race after. So take it as you like.
No, I love that pledge that our next episode will be the most researched, most well-informed F1 podcast that you will hear about the race, almost as if we've had an entire week to digest all the news and ruminate on all of the permutations. Zach, I think this has gone on long enough. It's time for us to wrap things up with a big old bow. So enjoy your trip. Enjoy going to Italy during the Italian Grand Prix. Didn't say at the Italian Grand Prix. But seriously, take a photo of the track for me. And until next time, my name's been Rod.
My name's been Zach.
We'll see you and Zach from the Italian Grand Prix.
Bye-bye.